Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's Naomi Wolf of Outspoken and Daily Clout, and I'm here with a really exciting candidate, Louis Quero. Welcome, Mr. Quero.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
It's a pleasure. So we wanted to speak to Louis Quero because, as you all know, I've been interviewing Jimmy Wagner, who is a kind of walkaway Democrat who has started a Republican club or helped lead a Republican club in Brooklyn. And we've interviewed Athena Clark, who's running for city council in Brooklyn, one of the candidates that Jimmy Wagner and his community are supporting, the Teachers for Choice are supporting. You know, if you follow my work, that I've been very concerned about the first responders in New York and Brooklyn, people who, you know, are teachers, are firefighters, are cops who were fired without and lost benefits and retirement and all kinds of seniority simply because they objected to an experimental product being put into their bodies, which was their constitutional right. So it's an exciting new crop of candidates, and I will turn to you in just a minute, Mr. Quero. But I wanted to say, Louis, we're nonpartisan, we can't endorse, but Louis Quero is a very interesting, to me, kind of grassroots candidate, really worth paying attention to, because you'll see from his platform that I'm going to share with you and that he's going to share with you, some of the most interesting policy ideas come from the grassroots, you know, come from people who've been leading lives in the world, learning things outside of, you know, politics, outside of Albany, outside of DC, and bringing that knowledge and that awareness to a political campaign. And the other reason I think these candidates are really interesting is they are not stereotypical, traditional, you know, country club Republican candidates, right? They have other life experiences that they bring to their candidacy. So welcome, Mr. Quero. Thank you for talking to us. How are you?
I'm doing swell. And I'm glad you brought up Jimmy Wagner and Athena. They're both really good friends of mine. They're doing some great work in the community. And I hope to be able to continue some of that in my race and in my district.
Can I ask you just to speak up or move closer to your mic? It's a little hard for us to hear you.
Sure. Is that better?
It's a little better. Yeah, a little better.
Okay.
If you can turn up the volume in any way, that's wonderful. But otherwise, just shout it out.
I guess I'll have to do a lot of shouting on this one. Great. I'm real animated this morning. So
say it again.
I'm very animated this morning. So
okay, great. Yeah, there is a little bit of audio suppression coming from you, which we should troubleshoot. Sorry, everyone. So just whatever you can do to speak right into the mic would be wonderful.
Sure.
So now, Mr. Quero, I'm gonna first ask you what led you. You're not a career politician, from what I can see yet. What led you to throw your hat in the ring for your race this year?
Sure. Well, part of it has to do with a personal matter. My mom was actually followed home by a homeless person in the district. We had been in the neighborhood 40-something years, right? My family was one of the first Puerto Rican families to move to Sunset Park back in the 60s. And something like that never happened, right? She was followed home about 4 or 5 blocks. Fortunately, I had a family member there that was able to intervene before something tragic really happened. But these types of stories seem to be happening on a much larger scale across the city, often with tragic results, right? So when you look at the move to defund the police, to disinvest in our communities, right, it really bothered me and it struck a nerve, so much so that I decided to run for city council.
Well, good for you. I'm sure this was your mom or your grandma?
This was my mother, yeah.
I'm sure she's really appreciating you stepping up, you know, on behalf of her and all the other ladies and gentlemen of her generation or cohort who, you know, deserve to be safe in their homes. So what do you think? That's really interesting. What do you, and is it statistically the case that crime is getting worse in your neighborhood? Or is that just an impression that people have?
Well, again, that's the perception that the administration is giving, right? That crime is falling, that we're all safer. But talk to any New Yorker on the street and they tell you otherwise, right? You have people being burned alive on the subways, people being slashed almost on a daily basis. And, you know, I'm a data scientist, right? So I like to look at the data itself.
Right.
And you look at some of these comp stat reports, right, that are produced by the police precincts.
What are comps?
So CompStat is a system that's used by the NYPD to track crime, right, across New York City,
Right.
and they produce metrics every month, every quarter on crime in every precinct, right? So if you live in New York City, you're covered by precinct. You can go to your local precinct and see their CompStat numbers.
I see.
Which is where this whole story, this narrative is coming from, right? But when you really look deeper at the numbers, right, and the classifications, you have an example where you have felonious assaults and you have other felonious assaults, right? What the heck is an other felonious assault?
Totally.
Right? So it automatically brings a red flag in my head. Well, they're reclassifying things, right? And if their felonious assaults numbers is too high one quarter, then we're going to lump it into the other felonious assault.
Right. And then say, oh, look, felonious assault.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything is great. Everything is on the downturn, right? So it's either they're massaging the numbers, they're underreporting, or even they're not reporting crimes, right, that are happening.
That's a really interesting observation. I just want to validate what you're saying from another data set. I have a team that looked at government data around medical issues, CDC issues, and they did the same thing with adverse events they didn't want to acknowledge. They just named them something else.
They reclassify it, and that's a way that even big companies kind of get away with, losses and stuff, right? They kind of reclassify, move things around. So someone coming from the private sector like myself had seen that, that raised the red flag on my head, right? I'm like, oh.
I mean, thank God for your background. This is why I love candidates who have not been politicians all their lives. They actually know some stuff from the real world that applies directly to understanding policy and politics. I've got to say, speaking as a New Yorker, I guess by now I'm a New Yorker, 25 years, whatever. I really want to validate what you're saying about anecdotally things changing, because a lot of kind of urban social scientists talk about the social fabric fraying kind of bit by bit, right? The broken windows theory, that neighborhood starts to go downhill when there are broken windows that are not attended to, and so on. And just to refresh the memory of very young people, that's why the Bloomberg administration was so popular in some ways, and the Giuliani administration, is they cracked down on, those little infractions, the misdemeanors, the people, squeegeeing your car and demanding money without your consent. So I just want to say, I live part-time in Prospect Lefferts in Brooklyn, and I was coming home last night. There was a break-in 2 nights ago. People just climbing right over the wall of our apartment complex. But B, I was coming home last night in an Uber, and there were a group of kids kind of just having fun, like 20 of them, right? Racing along and kind of filming what they were doing, and a very out of control vibe. Now, that's just kids having fun. But then one of them started climbing a traffic stop pole with a traffic light on it, and then was on the traffic light structure as all his friends were filming. And then he started to fall backward, and almost, there was almost a very serious injury, and everyone was just cheering and filming. And I saw the combination of social media and general fraying of the social fabric is just, that could have turned into a tragedy. And also, I didn't feel so safe with these rampaging kids, running around the block where I was about to.
And you live in a good neighborhood.
You're right. I guess, relatively speaking, that's true. Yeah. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think hearing from you is very important, because it's longtime residents of all races and backgrounds who are saying things have changed, this is out of control, not the incoming gentrify. I mean, they may be saying it too, but it's people who've been here for generations saying this neighborhood is changing, things are changing. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, let's even just start with the whole youth aspect. We have to give our youth something to vote for, right? I can't come out attacking Zohran Mamdani and right, because the youth are being attacked left and right, right? The entry-level jobs are being automated, they're being offshored, right? So from an economic standpoint, it's very tough being a 20-something-year-old in New York City these days,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf. The American healthcare system is broken. Big pharma charges an arm and a leg for their products, while insurance companies are focused on growing healthcare spending. So I'm always researching ways to take care of myself naturally. And one of the most overlooked factors is improving your blood flow. That means more oxygen and nutrients to your brain, heart, muscles. All our bodies need a little extra help as we get older. I use Blood Flow 7 from Juvenon. It works by boosting nitric oxide levels 230% and opening arteries up to 62% to improve blood flow. With just one dose a day, it's helped improve my stamina, energy, focus, and it supports my heart health, all without caffeine or stimulants. It's doctor formulated, scientifically backed with premium and natural ingredients. I wouldn't share it if it didn't work for me and for people I love. So go to www.bloodflow7.com/daily clout or click the link in the description below to learn more today.
So to sort of see that sort of hooliganism activity in the street, right? It kind of goes into this greater narrative that we have to bolster our youth, right? We have to prepare them for tomorrow's economy. So part of my platform is to do just that, right? We need to bring back trades and vocational education, right? Not everybody has to go to college, right? If you want to take your public monies and learn, take a CDL, learn to be an electrician, learn to be a plumber, then you should be empowered to do so, right?
What's the CDL?
A commercial driver's license to become a truck driver.
All right. Okay.
Right. So we need to start incentivizing these sort of career paths.
Right.
And take the message away from we're just going to give you everything, right? Because that's not how reality works, right? And then to the second variable, what you discussed, right? The police, they're demoralized, right?
Interesting.
They're much less likely to come out to a scene of an incident like what you described, right? Because they have bigger fish to fry, so to speak.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They're understaffed by like thousands of police officers compared to just a couple years ago.
Huh.
So there are various structural issues that you just raised, even in that just one example, that I do plan to tackle as part of my platform.
That's really interesting. Thank you for calling attention to the structural issues, because that was my gut feeling as a mom. Like, kids don't, if that kid who, was bending backwards with his legs hooked up 7 feet above street level, really felt he had a future, he might have been more cautious with himself, right? Let alone with, everything that was happening around him. So that's really interesting that you say that it's hard to be a 20-something in New York because entry-level jobs are being outsourced. Are there not decent entry-level jobs in Brooklyn anymore? Like,
well, let's think about it, right? Like what constitutes like an entry-level job for a 17, 20-year-old, right? They're, in the past they've found work in the service sector, right? Working at McDonald's, delivering foods, messaging, right? Who are in those jobs now? It's the migrants, right? They're taking the jobs away from the youth, or at least the entry-level jobs. And then anything else that's like data-oriented, data entry, kind of administrative, they're being offshored or outsourced altogether abroad, where talent is that much cheaper.
Right.
So it's kind of like this dual kind of attack on our youth that we need to address.
That's really insightful. So when you say the kind of delivery people jobs or working at McDonald's, the service jobs are being outsourced to migrants, how is that working? Like, I see that. I suddenly see, like, I'm in mostly Caribbean neighborhoods. Suddenly it was, mostly like Venezuelan people racing their e-bikes on the sidewalks, right? And terrifying the older Caribbean ladies who've been here for generations. And I don't understand, like President Trump has cracked down on illegal immigration. How are all of these delivery companies able to hire people who are not American citizens? I don't understand the legality of that.
Well, like to sign up for DoorDash, you can always just create a profile in somebody else's name and use their,
Really?
you know, use their credentials. And I don't want to put back myself in a hole there, right? But there are ways to get around the checks in the system, right?
Wow.
And these companies are benefiting from this, from these services, right?
Right.
So whether or not they're turning the blind eye or whatnot, who's to say?
Right.
But you see it firsthand yourself, right? I don't think I'm telling you anything that you don't, that you haven't seen.
I mean, actually, I'm trying to figure it out because I've been not just in the United States, but now in Europe, and you see the same, mass population, it seems like shipped out by global interests, corporate interests, to these different cities, zooming around on sidewalks on e-bikes. And I'm like, what's the legality of that? And I saw this in Vilnius, Lithuania, and I'm like, where are the Lithuanian kids? What's going on with this? But I agree with you. It sounds like some kind of incredible savings for corporations that want to not hire American young people, basically.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to go with the contractor model as well, right? If you have a contractor, a lot of those checks kind of go out the window, right? In terms of doing the I-9 verification. You also don't have to pay employment taxes, right? So it's in their interest to kind of keep this model robust and keeping these folks where they are.
But how could you, if you were successful in your candidacy in November, change that in Brooklyn?
Well, again, we have to give our youth opportunity, right? Whether or not they all want to be DoorDash, messengers or whatnot, it's a different story. Mm-hmm. I want to set them up for the economy of tomorrow, right? So I want to give them training in AI and robotics, right?
Wow.
How to support our small businesses using robotics and artificial intelligence, right? Because a lot of our small businesses are struggling with implementing that. How do these small businesses protect their data, right, against malicious actors and whatnot? So there's opportunity for the youth that actually has experience with the technology to actually get involved and help our small businesses, right, leverage the best of that technology has to offer, along with getting them apprenticeships, right, and in the electrical space and plumbing, becoming HVAC. So I guess it's more of a holistic approach than necessarily targeting the messengers or anything like that.
Right. I understand. So it's time to share your bio, which is so interesting. Louis Quero is running for city council in Brooklyn's District 38 with a mission to bring dignity, safety, and accountability back to our communities. A Brooklyn native, Columbia University graduate, and seasoned community advocate, Louis understands the challenges facing his neighbors, from rising crime and housing issues to a lack of trust in local government. He's ready to fight for safe streets, strong neighborhoods, and a city council that genuinely serves the people. And this is where things get really interesting. With a successful career as vice president of technology and operations at a major bank, Louis has led transformative projects and managed global teams, bringing precision, accountability, and results to every challenge. He's also been a force for positive change in Sunset Park, organizing tenants for better housing and mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs through his work with the Workshop in Business Opportunities. So that's where you get your background in mentorship. Louis is not a career politician, but a proven leader who prioritizes integrity, innovation, community empowerment. And what I just want to call everyone's attention to his agenda, which to your credit is front and center. Like sometimes I have to click around before I find people's, candidates actually policy platforms, but it's right here. So bringing dignity back is his motto. Push to end bail reform laws that protect repeat offenders, make our real estate market accessible by promoting co-op projects targeting low to moderate income households, bolster laws on title fraud targeting the elderly, streamline confusing and onerous requirements for job placement programs, this is so interesting, stop funding do-nothing nonprofits and divert funds to small business education, trade, and vocational programs. That's what you were just talking about. And oppose new drug treatment, quote, safe injection sites and shelters that cause neighborhood instability. And I love your slogan up here. You just want to get to work without getting stabbed or burned alive. Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout. Have you ever wondered why your brain can feel foggy even when you're eating clean and exercising? It might not be burnout, it could be parasites. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alan McDonald reveals a direct link between chronic parasite infections and neurological diseases such as multiple sclerosis. Parasites can cause inflammation, nerve damage, and long-term cognitive decline. More reason to do a full body cleanse at least once a year. The wellness company has a solution for you, ivermectin and mebendazole, the gold standard parasite solution now combined in one cleanse combo designed to eliminate harmful invaders and support your immune system naturally. Medical grade, not some trendy herbal gimmick. Fill out a quick intake form and you'll get a 3-month supply shipped straight to your door. Maha is officially here, and the wellness company is making hard to get medications digitally accessible so you can live your best life. Head to dailyclout.health and use code dailyclout to save $60 off plus free shipping on all orders. Cleanse your body today. Get rid of parasites today. Thank you. And I also love there is no Democratic or Republican way of cleaning the streets. That's Fiorello LaGuardia.
Yep.
So there's your platform. You talked about the training programs and on your platform, it talks about kind of diverting funds from NGOs. I just want to say, before I ask you to say more about this, that people who don't live in a major blue city, right, might not know that there are millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that go from our municipal budgets to these non-government organizations, these nonprofits, staffed by, who knows who, friends of the guys in power and girls in power. And then those millions go to programs. And when I had a nonprofit, I was struck and very angry to find that most of the programs facilitate poverty. They don't teach basic skills, like how do you have an interview? Here's a clothing library for your, job interview at a bank. How do you open a bank account? How to run for office, how to be financially literate, how to start a business, let alone be a plumber, be an electrician. Those are high paying skilled jobs now. Be in IT, be in cybersecurity. No, they were all about like massaging poverty and perpetuating poverty, it seemed to me, under nice headlines.
It's more profitable. Profitable.
Why are you focused on that? And what's your experience with these nonprofits to lead you to put those pieces together?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, right? And there's this perception at large, right, that just because it's called a nonprofit, that no one profits, right? And I'm challenging that message head on, right? And all you have to do is just look at my district, District 38 in Sunset Park. We have some of the second highest, I think it is the second highest shelter bed count of any district across New York City, right? Where we have dozens of shelters and hotels being crammed in this area. It's creating concentrations of poverty and substance abuse issues, right? But when you really look under the hood, they're really not trying to help these people, right? They're trying to warehouse them to generate profits and revenue for these quote unquote nonprofits. Many of them, which are actually former land developers that have they're former land developers, real estate developers that have become nonprofits, shelter operators, because they see that it's more profitable.
Oh my God.
Right. And because of that, we're actually not seeing the types of housing that we need, right? They could have actually have built hundreds, thousands of units of actual real, long-term affordable housing. But because it's more profitable to have hotel rooms for the homeless, having these warehouse shelters, right? That's what we're seeing, right? So it doesn't help the community. It doesn't even help the people that they intend to help, right? What kind of stability does it afford a homeless person, living in a hotel room? They don't have a kitchen. They don't have facilities to cook for themselves, to propagate. What kind of stability does that create for that person, right? So I'm challenging this notion that, all of these nonprofits are out there doing the work for the people. And the tragic part about it is that these nonprofits are taking money away from the nonprofits that are actually doing good work in the community, right? And that's, so we want to incentivize those good nonprofits and disincentivize the kind of evil actors out there, right, that are just sucking money from the municipal budget.
If you're successful in your candidacy, how would you like have a committee or advisors to distinguish the good ones from the bad ones?
Well, we need to start developing metrics, right? There isn't like a citywide website where all of the discretionary spending is front and center, right? And I can compare one nonprofit to the other and how many people they're serving, you know, the types of feedback that they're getting, right? Are they actually asking these homeless people, hey, what do you think of the shelter you're living in? Would you
Totally
come back here again?
I'm sure.
Right? Like a lot of the homeless people, they come, they tell me, like, you know, the shelter, you know, they turn off the Wi-Fi, they turn off the air conditioning during the day to kind of force the people out into the street.
Oh my God.
So how is that really helping them? So they're forced out of their home environments, they're going onto the street, they're shooting up, and then they're robbing and terrorizing the community.
Oh my God, how awful. Well, I really like, it's really hard for me because we're not supposed to endorse, but I really like the way you're thinking about this. Like literally no one who talks about homelessness listens to homeless people, right?
Yeah.
And listens to their actual lived experience. And no one I've ever heard in government has proposed a website with real metrics and analytics for deliverables, you know, for success that we can measure from nonprofits. It would be very, very, very illuminating, and it would clear out a lot of deadwood to have such a thing. Let me ask you this. I'm noticing a kind of, in many blue cities, a kind of sanctioning of drug use, right? Like you mentioned safe injection sites. I hadn't even known about that. But, you know, at the end of our street, they're building a gigantic facility to house mentally ill and substance abusing people. There are methadone clinics, shelters, and drug clinics, right? So when in my day, the government was supposed to help people get off of drugs, but it almost seems like there's institutionalization of drug use and institutionalization of homelessness. It's not, none of these policies lead to people not being homeless, and a lot of them, you know, facilitate being drugged out forever. Let me ask you a really cynical question. Do you think that these developers who are running these nonprofits support policies that, you know, maybe unintended consequences keep people drug abused?
They don't care. They don't care about the people in there. They actually want them hooked on drugs, right? Because it extends the amount of time that they're in the shelter system, right? And the amount of profits that they could generate off of these people, right? And when you look at drug abuse, right, as substance abuse, mental health, right, a lot of those issues tend to, you know, bear down to economics, right? Can we get this person a job? Right? Are they, you know, are they able to find a job? Are they able to feed themselves, right? And to pick themselves up by the bootstraps, right? Are we addressing the underlying mental health issues, right, through cognitive behavioral therapy, right? So we're spending billions and billions of dollars on the system that's really not even benefiting these people, right? And it really just ticks me off that, you know, you have these social crusaders out there saying that they're trying to help them and this and that, and they're just leaving them worse off than they were before. Wow,
that's chilling. So given how cynically you've described this kind of vicious circle that, you know, warehouses and facilitates thousands and thousands of people to be institutionalized one way or another forever and to destabilize communities, how would you persuade these developers, now nonprofits, to build affordable housing instead of, you know, taking giant contracts from the city for shelters?
Well, part of it is identifying the nonprofits that are actually doing good work, right? Because there are nonprofits out there doing the right thing. They're having, you know, in situ, you know, behavioral therapy. They're having career workshops, right, with their homeless, right? They're actually taking a holistic 360 approach to get people off of substances, right? And they're being successful at it.
Oh, wow.
So we want to identify those nonprofits, right, and pour more money into them. Right. You mentioned, you know, affordable housing, right? We need to stop building luxury condos. Like, I'm sorry, we don't need luxury ivory towers across the city. We have extra nationals using our city as a piggy bank. and distorting the market.
What
right?
do you mean by that? That they launder money through these?
Not necessarily launder money, right? But New York City, the United States, is a very attractive place for people to invest in, right?
Right.
Because it affords them certain consumer protections that they don't have back in their local economy,
Right.
right? Also, it prevents the local dictator communist regime from seizing your assets in the United States,
Right. Totally.
right? So if you're a Russian oligarch or whatever, you can invest in a couple of luxury condos in New York City to shield your wealth,
Right.
right? Even if you're not living in them, right? But essentially it's a piggy bank, right? And you see that across the city. You have all these luxury buildings, all these luxury condos, and they're all empty.
Right. That's true.
Right.
Let's go to just Brooklyn, right? I mean, of course, I'm living in a neighborhood which is going through a lot of change. There are a lot of luxury buildings being built in this very middle class, working class neighborhood. As a Republican, aren't you saying something very un-Republican, which is you don't want a free market in the real estate market? And B, isn't it also kind of good to have that tax base flowing from those newcomers coming into those middle and working class neighborhoods?
Well, it all comes down to local control, right? And what you're seeing at a citywide level is an effort to erode local control right away from the community boards, right? You have the City of Yes. You have an initiative, I believe, that's going to be on the November ballot to essentially remove the community boards from the land use review process.
What? Hey, what's the City of Yes? Please don't skip over that. That sounds
sorry. Yeah. So the City of Yes is this crazy legislative regime implemented by Mayor Adams and his administration that attempts to essentially cut out local community boards in land use decisions in order to facilitate quote unquote affordable housing, right? So they want to build backyard sheds. They want to do all this stuff to, supposedly address the shortage of affordable housing. But when in reality, what we're seeing is it's City of Yes for Eric Adams and his real estate developers, and then no for everybody else.
Huh.
Right. So it's just a way for real estate developers to kind of, run around and get over on community boards, get over on community consent when it comes to building these types of projects, right? And don't get me wrong, I agree in free market principles, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're seeing such a distortion in a marketplace where the average New Yorker can't buy into their own community because it's so expensive, right? That's a problem that needs to get addressed.
Definitely. Well, devil's advocate, I haven't seen the proposals or the regulations in the City of Yes. It sounds really, anything that gets rid of local control is terrifying. I'm amazed that hasn't been front page news, that, the local councils are New York and its boroughs, strongest democratic institutions. They're not all perfect, but they're the reason we're not a giant Walmart, from
Exactly. So again, it's not necessarily a Republican Democratic argument, right? It's an argument for New York City, right? And how do we protect our neighborhoods?
Right.
How do we stop rampant gentrification, which is displacing lower to middle income households across the city?
But let me ask you, devil's advocate, just the ADUs, right? The accessory dwelling units, what you called sheds and backyards. I think that also includes tiny homes and changing zoning so that there can be housing built, multiple units built on a single lot, right? Why is that bad? Wouldn't that actually open up more affordable housing in your borough and in my borough?
It can, right? But again, it's how you go about it, right?
So you'd like zoning to continue to be a council decision.
Of course, right? How do I know you're not going to set up one of these units and open up a strip club right in your backyard, right? Or how do we know that you have a concentration of units, right? That you're going to have the infrastructure to support all of these units, right? Whether that's schools, whether that's police. How do we know that fire trucks can actually get to the backyard, right? To put out a burning fire, some of these things.
Okay, duly noted. You've thought this through. I backed down on that one. Now, let's go to no, we don't need more luxury apartment buildings, but you do like co-ops, and there's a lot to be said for co-ops. And again, people who are not New Yorkers, that's a way for people of moderate income or lower income to have ownership of their apartment in a cooperative building. So why do you like those when we've also seen that, city-owned, city-run housing, like the projects, have horrible problems?
Exactly, right? NYCHA is the city's worst landlord, right? It's actually, anytime there's a new like tenant regulation, NYCHA is usually carved out of it.
So I'm sorry, jumping in, Mr. Quero, if I may, can you spell out what that is for people who don't live here? New York City.
New York City Housing Authority, yes. So New York City Housing Authority runs all of the public housing projects across the city.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hundreds of thousands of units subsidized by the government. Mm-hmm. And you have people that are living in squalor in a lot of them, right? You have mold, you have instances where buildings are without hot water and heat for months, and you couldn't even encounter that on the private side, right? Because the city would fine and seize your building if you were like that, as a private landowner. But NYCHA gets away with that.
Right.
So when you look at Mamdani's proposal to expand that, it's actually very scary. I want to expand co-op housing because it's worked, right? You have projects, co-op housing in the Bronx.
Yeah.
There's this community in my district in Brooklyn where, there's one building exists and it has all these beautiful flowers and it's painted, and then it's like in a sea of garbage, right?
Right.
And it all gets back to having a sense of ownership in your community, right? When you have a stake in your community, you're more likely to pick up the piece of litter from the street. You're more likely to throw out the bag of garbage you see. You're more likely to call the cops on the crack house down the street, right? And report them, right? Because you have a stake, you have an investment in that community and seeing that grow, right? So that kind of dynamic will ensure that our neighborhoods kind of stop this downward trajectory, right? And start to begin to improve again.
Right, that makes sense. Wow, that's so interesting. And for people who don't, I'm sorry to keep doing this to you, but I know you're in the middle of a very local fight where everyone knows who Mamdani is. But for our global audience, I'll have to jump in and say Zohran Mamdani is the guy who kind of came out of nowhere, very privileged son of filmmakers and trust fund guy, basically,
mm-hmm.
posing as a socialist hero, working class hero, wearing like Punjabi clothes, even though he graduated from Columbia, like you did, I believe. And he's promising free housing, free transportation, government-run grocery stores. And young people are like, yes, so Mamdani, and people like Mr. Quero and many others are noticing that countries have tried we've tried, as you just said, government-run housing in New York, and it's a catastrophe. We've tried in the Soviet Union, government-run, like grocery stores. It's a nightmare. So people are going like, this is communism. It's a bill of goods, but it's a very big threat. And basically, you're not just running for city council. You're kind of running against that as well. You have to stay healthy and well at times like this. You know that I often have suffered from mobility issues, and now I don't. Part of my lifestyle is Native Path collagen. So Native Path's collagen formula is made with ingredients that are scientifically developed to increase bone mineral density, support tissue recovery, reduce wrinkles, enhance hair thickness, and strengthen nails. Who wouldn't want more collagen with all of these benefits? So right now, when you visit getnativepath.com/dailyclout, you can stock up on Native Path collagen for up to an incredible 45% off today, plus free shipping. Every order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee. You can try it risk-free today. It is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners, and it's third-party tested for heavy metals, which makes sure that it is pure and safe. It's flavorless. You can add it to anything. I add it to my oatmeal. You can add it to coffee or smoothies. Its formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes without clumping. And the best part is Native Path is offering amazing bundle deals, 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 five-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice, and they offer an 800 number. You can ask any question. A real person is waiting to help. You can join a private Facebook community. I love these people. Share recipes, success stories. So that's getnativepath.com/dailyclout and start your experience of transformation today, right? Because people are deciding
we're on the tip of the spear on the fight against socialism here in America. The fact of the matter is, right, when New York sneezes, the whole country catches a cold, right?
That's true, yeah.
And we have to quell that here. And it's troubling because communism, socialism, when it kind of rears its head abroad, right, it tends to succeed in the short term, right? I call it political candy, kind of offering everything for free. We're going to tax the rich, right? It's very appealing.
Right.
When you look at it, you know, from a long-term lens, capitalism always wins, right? They tried it in China, and they had the steel pot famine. Venezuela is one of the richest oil-producing nations in the country, and they can't even feed their population, right? So the socialist economic model doesn't work. Simple as that, right? Capitalism wins time and time again.
Right.
So, you know, that's why I feel very passionate, right? We have to give the youth something to vote for outside of political candy.
Well, that is definitely persuasive. And I know a lot of people in Brooklyn, just on a micro level, are really going to resonate to your kind of safe streets, you know, don't facilitate homelessness and drug abuse platforms. A lot of young people will resonate to your get some training for a high paying, interesting job platform. One of your platforms that kind of I need to ask about is the AI and robotics piece. So you come from an IT background or a data science background, right? And which was the bank that you worked for?
I can't divulge that. It's one of the major American banks, one of the top ones. But I've worked for JP Morgan in the past. I've worked for Scotiabank. So I've been around the larger banks.
So just curious, I get how your employer could require you not to divulge the name of the bank, but don't the people voting for you? I mean, someone's going to find out, you know, don't.
Oh, I'm sure. I just, you know, as part of my agreement for running, I just can't use their name.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
So they're allowing me to run. They just don't want to be involved. So I don't blame them.
If you're elected, are you going to be able to be a full-time council member if you still have a job?
Oh no, I would have to resign. That was part of the deal. Yeah, they said, all right, you have to resign and.
Okay. Well, I guess what interests me about your AI and robotics push is could someone critical say, this guy sounds great, he's saying all the right things, but he's a stalking horse for getting government data sets, municipal data sets into private sector AI, large language models?
Well, I disagree with that. I think that part of the issue is that people don't understand the technology, right? And they don't understand the guardrails that can be set up to prevent something like that, right? But who understands this technology? It's our youth, right? It's the 20-something-year-olds, the 30, you know, that are using this to you know, create videos, to create content, right? Why can't they go into a small business, a medium-sized business, and say, hey, we're going to automate, we're going to do some robotics process automation, and let's set up the appropriate guardrails so that your data stays in-house, that it's not easily accessible by an outside party, right? Whether that's a malicious actor or the government, right? And which is what you're seeing now, right? You know, you have all these companies, even large companies, right? They have all these all these models, all these data lakes, and they're even they are struggling to maintain data integrity and control over their data, right? So we
Well, that's kind of exactly my point. I mean, just for a little bit of background, I've been very, very worried about Elon Musk getting his hands on all of our federal government data with his AI platform. And they fired all the cybersecurity people, or they resigned, and nothing prevented it, from what I saw, many valuable data sets that were confidential from being sucked into private sector AI. So I guess I'm asking you, what assurance do I have as a Brooklynite that you will not privatize or breach or push for third-party management of our municipal confidential data?
Oh, I mean, the municipal element, right? I mean, first of all, that data should be confidential, right? You're providing this data with confidence in your local government that they're going to keep it safe and secure. And at the end of the day, we need people proficient enough to ensure that that's actually happening, right? To actually ensure that this data is safe and secure. And there's actual a dearth of that talent in the market, right? People that understand these models, understand the technologies. So having a much larger employment base of people that can be there monitoring these models, monitoring for data compliance, right? We're more likely to secure that data than we are today, right? Where there aren't as many people that understand the technology, understand, the guardrails that can be set up.
So that's a really interesting and persuasive response, but I'm asking you personally, can you assure voters that you won't, if you're elected, right, that you won't push to bring in third-party data management, private sector data management that would breach those guardrails? It's very easy.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
I'm all for data privacy and maintaining protect. The fact that remains that we don't have, and I think that's more of like a legislative question more than anything, right? This is where the legislation, the policy really hasn't kept up with the technology, right? In ensuring that your data is protected and it's siloed and it's not being used by different actors, right, outside of the person that you furnished it to. So I think that's probably more of a policy question, more so
Right.
than.
It's also, I'm going to push back a little bit. It's also a question for you as an individual, because you and I both know that it doesn't take much for a city council member to say, hey, guys, people who are totally illiterate digitally or in terms of AI, let's just use this Microsoft platform, or let's just use this AI platform to systematize the DMV here in Brooklyn, or to manage medical records for the VA here in Brooklyn. And no one's going to understand enough to say that's a bad idea, or that breaches our cybersecurity. So I'm just asking for your assurance that you're.
Well, I do. And that's the thing of having someone like myself in office that actually understands the technology. Will be more likely to have a solution that protects everybody's data, right? And maintains.
Okay, I'm listening for I will not.
Oh yeah, I won't. Yeah, of course not.
That's what I was after. All right, thank you very much. So in our remaining 15 minutes or so, can you, how can I put this? As a lifelong Democrat who has recently walked away, just like a lot of you all have, it seems. I don't know about your past politics affiliations, but Athena Clark was a Democrat, Jimmy Wagner was a Democrat. Why? It seems like you'd be catnip for the DNC to, the next male AOC, right, to cultivate and groom you to take on a major role, to have a astronomic career as a Democratic candidate. Why did you choose to throw in your lot with Republicans? And have they approached you?
No, they haven't approached me. They wouldn't either. Part of the issue is that I really want to challenge this paradigm within Black and Hispanic communities that the Democratic Party has this interest at mind, right? When you look at the budget, when you look at the policy, it doesn't pan out, right? Mm-hmm. We have some of the most stark disparities in outcomes within our public school systems across New York City, right? And this is all under Democratic control, right? It's one of the most segregated school systems under Democratic control. When you look at transit dollars and how they're allocated, it tends to be Black and Hispanic communities usually get the shaft, right? They were able to build the Second Avenue subway, and they stopped right at 96th Street, right? Right before it came into Harlem.
Oh
even though the tunnel's there.
Oh my
right?
God, that's insane.
But you're starting to see that shift, right? You know, especially with the last national election where communities of color came out increasingly for Trump, right? They're kind of starting to smell the BS, and that's what my part of my message is as well.
That's really, so you never considered running as a Democrat?
No. To do the type of change, the type of agitation, and you know, change that we want to bring, I have to do it as a Republican, right? Because otherwise the Democratic Party will say, no, you have to stay in line, right, and you have to tout the party line. And that's not what my community wants.
Well, so Republicans have been characterized or caricatured, you know, till the recent past as racist and white supremacist and disdainful of Black and Hispanic communities. Do you think that's changed? Do you think that perception among the people you know in Black and Hispanic communities has changed, or is that still a hurdle, do you think, that reputation?
It is a hurdle, I'm not gonna lie. Well, what's encouraging is when you have a candidate that looks like me coming out, making speeches in Spanish, right? Reminding them that Republicans can govern and provide good policy, right? You can bring up, you know, the Pataki, Giuliani, Bloomberg era of eras where we've had successful Republican leadership that has delivered for the people, that has delivered for Black and Hispanic communities. Right. And that resonates with people, right? So
how do Hispanic Americans who've been here forever or who are citizens react to the issue of illegal Hispanic immigration?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because some of my biggest supporters are actually recently arrived immigrants from Latin America who have gone through the legal immigration process, have spent the thousands of dollars and the years in the process waiting for their turn, right? So they waited, they invested in doing the process right. And then they come here, they don't have debit cards, they don't have luxury hotel rooms, you know, to kind of rely on. Wow. They kind of have to, you know, pick themselves up and make it happen, right? And then they look at the newly arrived migrants, they get all of this help, they get debit cards, they get the hotel rooms. So essentially they're incentivizing this lawlessness, right? And they're just as pissed off as anybody.
That's really interesting. And lastly, as I mentioned at the start of this interview, I was connected to you through my interest in the first responders and teachers in New York who were mandated out of their jobs. What will you do to ensure that that can never happen again, that people will never again lose their jobs for, you know, public health reasons or for unconstitutional reasons like that?
Well, it was distasteful. You know, I'm fully behind the reinstate and compensate movement. Right now, we're at a shortage of public service employees. I think within the police force, we have about 4,000 less police that we did a couple years ago. And meanwhile, we have this ready pool of talent that's ready to step in, and we're kind of keeping them to the sides. And I will fight tooth and nail to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Right. Wow. And so reinstate and compensate means to bring back those teachers, firefighters, police officers who were mandated out when they didn't take the injection. People don't know, as your colleagues point out, they still haven't gotten their jobs back like 4 years later. So I guess finally, do you think there's enough? You've identified a lot of real interest groups, you know, young people who want jobs in Brooklyn, elderly people who want to be safe, people who can't afford, you know, rent unless there's or want to own their own co-op, affordable housing. Supporters you've identified, you know, a group of people who want their jobs back, who are mandated out, legal immigrants who are not happy with being treated in a discriminatory way, I would say, versus illegal immigrants. Does that make a winning? How's the math, and how are you being received out there on the campaign trail? Do you have a chance of winning?
Well, hey, I mean, people are upset, right? My competitor is actually a democratic socialist, right? So she's been in office now for 4 years, right? So people want to see what New York City is going to look like under democratic socialists. Come to District 38, come to Brooklyn, to Red Hook, Sunset Park. You'll see the garbage in the streets. You'll see the rats, the overflowing garbage cans, rampant crime, failing schools. I mean, the pollution levels are insane, right? It's bad when you have the Republican complaining about the pollution in the area. So my message is resonating in the community, right? What's unfortunate, I don't have the campaign in the box that the Democratic Socialists have, right? Where they're being pushed by this party and they're getting all that infrastructure, right? But the message is definitely sticking, and I think I do have a good chance.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. And it's completely fascinating. I feel very encouraged that there are candidates like you and Ms. Clark. Again, I'm not supposed to be partisan, but I'm really impressed that a younger generation is bringing fresh ideas to the table. And, from a perspective of people who live in the community, hear from the community, and so on. How do people help you? How do they find your website? Where can they go to support you?
Sure. Go to www.luis438.com. So that's
I
the
get it.
numbers 438.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of sounds like a little biblical verse as well, right? Just a little
Right.
play on words. So yeah, come out to the website, learn about me, and please do support. We can use everybody's help.
Thank you. And do people find you on social media, or are you mostly not on social media?
Yep, I am on Facebook, Instagram. So I even have a link tree as well. I can shoot that over to you.
Why don't you have your developer put it on your website so people can follow you? Or if you send it to us, we'll send it around. But people want to follow you on social media.
I would love that. Please follow me, learn all the great work that we're doing.
Do you happen to know your handle on Instagram or?
I think it's Luis438.
Okay, great.
Look it up right now.
Look for him there. And guys, you get the leader, and girls, you get the leadership you support. So if you like these ideas, whether you live in Brooklyn or not, right, you can accept donations from people who are not live here. Support this guy. If you don't like him, don't support him, obviously. But if you've heard anything here that resonates, certainly if you're a Brooklynite or a New Yorker, but anyone who cares about cities and the elderly and our kids, go ahead and find that link on Louis Quero for City Council, Louis438.com, and support him. And thank you, Mr. Quero, for talking to us. Have a wonderful day and best of luck.
Thank you. It was a great combo. Appreciate it.
Thank you.